echoes in Kandahar.
I don't know what you'd call what happened out there. Not a firefight, not an ambush. I've replayed it 100 times in my head, and every time I get to the end, I can't tell what was real and what wasn't. All I know is 4 of us went out into the desert that night, and only I came back. My name's Staff Sergeant David Rourke, 3rd Platoon, Bravo Company, Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, 2012. The day before it happened, it was like any other deployment day. Dry heat, dust storms, the smell of diesel and sweat hanging thick over the FOB. We'd gotten intel about an abandoned compound roughly 8 clicks out, supposed to have been a Taliban meeting point weeks prior. Command wanted a recon team to verify. I volunteered. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I wanted to prove something. Maybe I just wanted out of the wire for a night. Our team was small. Corporal Hensley, quiet guy from Iowa who never smiled but never complained. Specialist Turner, younger, a joker, always humming country songs even when he was scared. And then there was Doc Morales, our medic, a level-headed guy who could keep calm even when the world was burning. The 4 of us loaded up in a Humvee and rolled out at 2100. We drove until the roads turned to gravel, then to sand. The moon was sharp and pale, hanging over a dead landscape that stretched forever. Out there, time doesn't move. You just exist between the wind and the dust. When we reached the compound, it was half buried. Mud walls eroded, the gates sagging. The air smelled old, like damp concrete and burned wood. We did a sweep, no movement, no tracks. The place looked like it hadn't seen life in years, but the further in we went, the more it felt wrong. Not dangerous, just wrong. Hensley said it first.
You feel that?
The wind had stopped. Total stillness. Even the usual hum of distant insects was gone. I told him to keep scanning. We moved through narrow corridors where the walls felt too close, like they'd grown inward over time. There were signs of occupation, old mats, torn fabric, empty casings, but they were thick with dust, like they'd been there for decades. When we reached the central courtyard, Turner pointed his light across the open space. There was a door on the far side, hanging crooked. Something behind it reflected the light, quick, like glass. We stacked up. I pushed the door open. Inside was a single room, bare walls, a collapsed cot, and in the corner, a mirror. At least I thought it was a mirror. But the glass wasn't reflecting the room. It was reflecting something else entirely. The image showed the same space, same cracked walls, but it was daylight on the other side. Clear blue sky. The cot wasn't broken, and for a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me in that reflection, out of focus, watching. Then Turner's flashlight cut out. We stood there in pitch black for a full minute, listening to each other breathe. When the light came back, the mirror was gone. Just bare concrete where it had hung. We didn't talk about it at first. We just kept moving, deeper into the compound, trying to find something, anything, that would justify why the place felt alive. Morales tried to make a joke, said maybe the Taliban were hiring ghosts now. Nobody laughed. The deeper rooms were colder, not cool like shade, but cold like metal. My breath fogged in the air. It didn't make sense. We were in southern Afghanistan, midsummer. In one room, we found an old generator, rusted through, connected to a tangle of wires that ran up through the ceiling and disappeared. When we followed the wires to the roof, there was nothing. No power source, no outlet, no solar rig. Just open desert and the low hum of silence. I started recording with my helmet cam. Part of me wanted proof. Another part didn't. When we regrouped in the courtyard, Turner was standing near the wall, staring off into the distance. I called his name. No response. He just kept staring, like he was listening for something. When I got closer, I realized he was listening. His radio headset was crackling faintly. "Turner," I said. "You picking up chatter?" He nodded, eyes still fixed on the horizon. I listened in. It was static at first, just the occasional pulse of signal. Then a voice. Not English, not Pashto, not any language I'd ever heard. It was whispering, rhythmic, like a prayer or chant, but too fast, too distorted.
"Probably an old signal bouncing from somewhere,"
Morales said. But even he didn't sound convinced. Hensley swore quietly.
That's not interference. That's someone talking.
We all listened then. The voice faded, replaced by faint music, like an old radio tune. Something familiar, from home. For me, it was Sinatra. For Turner, he said it was his dad's favorite Hank Williams song. Hensley said he heard church bells. Morales heard nothing. That was when we realized the sound wasn't the same for any of us. We decided to exfil. The compound wasn't safe. Whatever it was, signal ghost, psychological trick, I didn't care. We needed to go. But when we stepped back into the main corridor, the door we'd come through was gone. In its place was a blank wall. Turner cursed and slammed his hand against it. The wall was cold, smooth. Not brick, not concrete. Something else. It felt like touching polished stone, slick and lifeless. Morales started marking the way back with chem lights. We dropped one every 10 feet. Green glow in the dark. But when we turned a corner and looked back, the previous lights were gone. Just pitch black behind us. That's when the whispering started again. It wasn't through the radio this time. It was in the air. The kind of whisper that doesn't come from sound. It comes from thought, from memory. It said my name.
David.
I froze. It wasn't any of the guys. The voice was a woman's. Soft, familiar. My sister. She died in 2009. I hadn't thought of her voice in years. I looked down the corridor and saw something move. A figure in the dark, walking toward us. Turner raised his rifle.
"Who's there?"
No response. The figure stopped, half shrouded in shadow. Then it spoke, in my sister's voice.
"You shouldn't have come here."
The muzzle flashes lit up the hall. Turner fired a burst. When the light faded, the figure was gone. The wall behind it was clean. No bullet holes, no dust. Morales shouted that we needed to move. We ran. We kept running until we hit a dead end. The map didn't match. The compound had twisted somehow, corridors curving where straight lines should have been. Hensley started panicking. He said he could hear footsteps behind us. None of us heard them at first, but then, soft, wet, dragging sounds, like someone walking barefoot through water. The air felt heavier. The shadows deepened, stretching unnaturally along the walls. Then the radio crackled again. This time, it was my voice. Static. Then clear as day. "We're not getting out." I dropped my headset. Turner said,
"That's not funny, man!"
I didn't say that, I told him. He didn't believe me. None of them did. We stopped in what looked like a storage room. Broken crates, old furniture, shattered tiles. Morales sat down, head in his hands. He said his pulse was racing. He said he could hear a heartbeat coming from the walls. And then, suddenly, he screamed. We spun around. He was staring at his hand, blood dripping between his fingers. I thought he'd cut himself, but when I shined the light, I saw the wound wasn't on his hand. It was under the skin, like something was pressing outward, trying to get free. He dropped to his knees, shaking. Something rippled beneath his arm, veins bulging, flesh distorting. Then it stopped. Just silence. We didn't speak. We didn't know what to do. When we finally found the courtyard again, it wasn't the same. The moon was gone. The sky above was black, like ink. Turner was crying. He said he saw movement in the sand, faces pushing up from beneath the surface, gasping for air. I didn't see them. Hensley did. He opened fire. The sand exploded under the muzzle flashes, but the faces kept coming, shifting, reforming, whispering our names. Then the sound of rotor blades. A helicopter, somewhere above. I screamed into the comms, calling extraction, but all I got was static. When I looked back, Turner was gone. Hensley, too. Just me, standing in that courtyard, rifle shaking in my hands. The faces in the sand stopped moving. The whispering stopped. The world went silent again. Then, out of the quiet, came a voice. My own. You shouldn't have come here. They found me 3 days later, half buried in the desert, wandering toward the FOB. My rifle was gone. My gear was gone. I couldn't remember how I'd gotten out. They said there was no compound where I claimed it was, just empty dunes and rock. They asked me about my team. I told them everything. They said I was dehydrated, delusional, trauma-induced hallucinations. But sometimes, at night, I still hear the radio, just faint static. Then a voice, hers, saying my name.
David.
And when I answer, the static answers back.
The Hollow Patrol.
In the far north of Finland, where the world ends in white and the horizon bleeds into sky, there stood a forgotten border outpost called Vartiopaikka 9. It wasn't on any current maps, not even the classified ones. The station had been built during the Cold War, a cluster of concrete huts half buried in snow, a communications mast, a fuel depot long since frozen solid. Its purpose had faded with time, but still, a skeleton crew of soldiers manned it year-round. 3 men were stationed there the winter it began, the coldest in 20 years. Sergeant Mikko Saarinen, 38, a veteran of too many winters, had served longer than he cared to admit. His beard had grown white before its time, and his eyes carried that dull, unshakable fatigue of a man who'd stopped expecting the world to make sense. Then there was Corporal Lauri Niemi, 27, all nerves and cigarettes, with an artist's hands that had somehow ended up holding a rifle. He'd volunteered for this post because he thought it'd be quiet, maybe even peaceful. It wasn't. The third was Private Elias Virtanen, the youngest, barely 20, a farm boy from Tampere, who still wrote letters home by hand, addressing them to mother and father in tidy block letters. 3 men, alone in the white. Their duties were simple: monitor the border sensors, patrol the perimeter every 12 hours, log weather data, and report any unusual activity to the Lapland Command. Unusual activity was rare. Sometimes a bear, sometimes a wandering herd of reindeer. Most days there was nothing at all. But that winter, the wind never stopped. It howled through the antenna tower like a throat too long without sound. It tore at the windows and froze the hinges until the door handles stuck to bare skin. And at night, when the aurora flickered green and ghostly above the horizon, Mikko swore the snow moved differently, like the land itself was breathing. On January 9th, at 0430 hours, the sensor alarms triggered. 3 pings, equidistant, moving across the borderline from the east. No visuals, no thermal signatures, just movement. Mikko pulled on his parka and met Lauri and Elias at the control desk. The radar display pulsed faintly in the dark, the signals blinking in rhythm with the men's heartbeats.
Could be animals.
Elias offered.
This cold?
Mikko grunted.
Nothing's moving out there.
Lauri leaned over the map.
They're spaced apart. 200 meters each, too organized for wildlife.
They waited for visuals from the external cameras. Static, all 5 feeds were snowed over.
Damn it,
Mikko muttered.
we'll have to go out.
Laurie hesitated.
Now? The storm hasn't stopped since midnight.
Miko looked at him.
You want to explain to Command why we ignored a border breach?
No one answered. They suited up. Thermal layers, fur hoods, goggles, rifles. The world outside roared with wind and snow. When they stepped into it, it felt like entering another reality. The cold wasn't like normal cold. It wasn't something that bit at you. It sank in slow, quiet, bone deep. The snow reflected the light from their headlamps in endless glittering flakes, erasing the horizon. Visibility, 10 meters. Beyond that, just white. They trudged toward the sensor points, following the GPS readings on their wrist units. Miko led, Laurie behind him, Elias trailing close. The world was soundless except for the wind and the crunch of boots. Halfway to the first sensor, Elias spoke over the radio.
Sergeant, I see movement.
Miko stopped.
Where?
10 o'clock, maybe 30 meters. Looked like a figure.
They all turned their lights that way. Nothing. Just snow.
You sure?
I saw it move.
Elias said.
Could have been.
He trailed off.
Could have been a reflection.
They pushed on. When they reached the first sensor post, it was half buried under ice. The display light was blinking erratically, its lens cracked. Something had struck it hard. Miko knelt and brushed away snow, checking for tracks. There were footprints, bootprints, human-sized. But they didn't lead toward the border. They led away from it, deeper into Finland. And they weren't fresh. They were half frozen, half buried, as though they'd been made days ago. Yet the snow around them was untouched, smooth and new. Laurie's breath fogged his visor.
How's that possible?
Miko didn't answer. He just stared at the horizon, where the snow seemed to shimmer and twist. Then, faintly, they heard something. A voice, calling out in Finnish, a man's voice, ragged and hoarse.
Apua! Apua!
Help. They followed the sound through the storm, the wind snatching words from their mouths. The voice came in bursts, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes echoing from directions that didn't match. Elias swore it was coming from beneath the ice. After 20 minutes, they reached a ridge where the land dipped into a shallow basin. At the bottom was a cluster of old wooden structures, hunting shacks, half collapsed and buried in snow. The voice came again, clearer now.
Apua!
Miko raised a hand for silence. They crept closer. At the entrance to the largest shack, something was written on the door in frost. Not carved, not painted. Frozen from within, like condensation had spelled it out. Elavasta. Don't answer. Laurie wiped his goggles.
What the hell?
The door creaked open. Inside, the shack was empty. No footprints, no heat, no man calling for help. But there was a radio on the floor, ancient Soviet era. The voice came from it.
Apua!
The sound looped, the same tone, the same breath between words, over and over. Miko leaned down, brushing snow off the device. It wasn't powered, no batteries, no cable, just static and that endless, repeating plea. When he turned it off, the voice didn't stop. It just moved, outside, behind the shack, whispering now.
Apua!
Elias turned, his rifle shaking.
Sir, I think there's someone out there.
Hold your fire.
Miko said. Then they saw it. A silhouette on the ridge above them, human-shaped, unmoving. Its parka was identical to theirs. It stood perfectly still, face hidden by the storm. Miko shouted,
Identify yourself.
The figure tilted its head slightly. Then it stepped back and vanished into the white. They gave chase. But no matter how far they ran, the shape stayed just out of reach, always ahead, just visible through the snow. And then, as if the storm itself blinked, it was gone. When they stopped, catching breath, they realized they'd lost all sense of direction. The compass needles were spinning. GPS, no signal. Radio, dead. The wind dropped to a whisper, and in that sudden silence, they heard footsteps circling them in the snow. Back at Vartiopaika 9, hours passed. The storm swallowed their last radio transmission. The base went dark, power flickering. Inside the command cabin, Laurie tried restoring the comms link. His hands shook as he twisted the dials, the static bursting like whispers. Elias paced by the window.
That thing we saw?
It was a man.
Mikko said.
Has to be. Maybe a deserter. Maybe Russian.
Elias shook his head.
You saw how it moved. It wasn't right.
Laurie glanced up.
Sir, do you hear that?
They all went still. From outside came a sound, faint, steady. Knocking, 1, 2, 3. Then silence. It came again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow. Measured. Always 3. They aimed their rifles at the door.
Miko,
Laurie whispered.
protocol says...
I know the damn protocol.
He approached the door and shouted.
Identify yourself.
No response. Just wind. He unlatched the bolt and pulled the door open. No one there. But there were footprints. Boot prints leading away into the storm. Miko followed them with his light, tracing their path, until they curved back. Back toward the door. Back to where he stood. And then, slowly, a 4th print appeared in the snow, sinking down on its own. Then another. Something invisible was walking toward him. He slammed the door shut and bolted it. Hours passed. The knocking stopped, but the wind didn't return. The air outside had gone still again, the same dead quiet from before. They tried sleeping in shifts, but none of them really slept. At some point near dawn, Elias woke to the sound of someone speaking. Soft, low. Mikko's voice. He followed it to the comms room. Miko was alone, hunched over the radio, whispering into it. But the radio wasn't on.
Sir?
Elias said. Miko turned slowly. His eyes were unfocused. Frost had formed on his beard.
Do you hear them?
He said. Hear who?
The ones outside. They're cold, Elias. They're waiting.
Elias took a step back.
We should rest, Sergeant.
Miko smiled faintly.
They said they remember me.
Elias left the room and locked the door behind him. By the time Laurie woke, Miko was gone. The door was open, snow blowing in. They found his rifle by the generator shed, half buried. His footprints led away into the white, then stopped. Laurie wanted to follow. Elias refused.
He's gone,
Elias said.
You saw what's out there.
Laurie clenched his jaw.
We can't just leave him.
Elias's voice broke.
He's not himself anymore.
That's when the radio crackled. Miko's voice came through.
Return to base.
It was his tone, his inflection. But the transmission was wrong. Layered, echoed like 3 people speaking at once. Then a long pause. And softly.
It's warmer down here.
They barricaded the doors and waited. The generator died by nightfall, plunging the outpost into darkness. The aurora shimmered faintly outside, washing the snow in sickly green. Elias couldn't stop staring out the window.
There's someone out there,
he whispered.
Look.
At first, Laurie saw nothing. Then, movement. shapes, multiple, drifting through the snowfield. Each of them wore Finnish uniforms. One stopped and turned toward the cabin. Its face was blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. And yet, somehow, it smiled. Morning never came. The sky stayed dark, the aurora burning like veins in the clouds. The world had gone quiet again, the sound of the living replaced by the soft crunch of unseen feet in the snow. Laurie found Elias in the comms room, writing something in his logbook.
What are you doing?
Reporting.
Elias said.
To who?
Elias didn't look up.
To whoever comes next.
The pages were filled with the same line, written over and over. We are hollow, we are hollow, we are hollow. Laurie grabbed his shoulder.
Elias, listen to me.
Elias turned. His eyes were wide, glassy. His breath came out in misty plumes.
They don't want us to freeze,
he said softly.
They want us to stay.
Then his skin began to frost over, thin crystals forming along his jaw, his lashes. His pupils faded to white. Laurie stumbled back. Elias stood, smiling faintly, and walked out into the storm. Laurie followed, screaming his name. The cold hit like knives, but he didn't stop. He chased the disappearing figure through the snow until the outpost was gone behind him. He found them at the ridge, a line of figures standing perfectly still, facing east, all in uniform. Elias was among them. They didn't move, didn't breathe. As Laurie approached, one of them turned. It was Mikko. His eyes were hollow sockets, filled with frost. His mouth moved without sound, and when the wind finally came, it carried his whisper through the storm.
Welcome home, Corporal.
Weeks later, when a supply convoy reached Vartiopaika 9, they found the outpost empty. The logs ended abruptly on January 10th. The generator had frozen solid. Inside the command room, one note remained taped to the wall, written in pencil, shaky, half erased by moisture. Do not answer the voices in the snow. No trace of the men was ever found. But sometimes, in winter, the border sensors still trigger, 3 equidistant pings moving across the ice. And when the wind dies, the operators swear they hear it faintly through the static. A man's voice, distant and frozen.
Apua.
Project Chimera.
They flew us in at night. That was the first sign something was off. No lights, no radio chatter, no markings on the chopper except for a faint US insignia that looked half burned away. The pilot never spoke to us, not once. There were 5 of us in total. Me, Staff Sergeant Cole Maddox, Specialist Dean, our medic, Corporal Ruiz, our comms guy, Lieutenant Sawyer, the officer who never smiled, and Private First Class Harker, the youngest, fresh out of basic, too eager for his own good. We'd been told only the essentials: assignment Bravo Delta, guard duty at a secured facility in Nevada, 3 weeks rotation. That was it. No maps, no mission brief, just an NDA so thick it might as well have been a Bible. The chopper landed in the middle of what looked like the Mojave, empty desert under a bruised sky. Sand, rock, nothing else. Then, out of nowhere, the ground opened. A massive steel hatch rising from beneath the earth. The pilot waved us out and took off before the dust even settled. 2 men in hazmat suits greeted us. They didn't say a word, just gestured for us to follow. We went down, elevator after elevator, level after level, until the air changed. The deeper we went, the colder it got. By the time we reached the bottom, my ears had popped twice. That's when I first saw the sign, Project Chimera, Classified Restricted Zone. Inside, the hallways were pure white, sterile, humming with invisible machines. The lighting was soft, but endless. There were no clocks, no windows, no sound except for the low pulse of generators behind the walls. A woman in a lab coat finally broke the silence.
You'll be stationed outside Containment Sector C,
she said.
Do not approach the glass. Do not engage the subject. If you hear alarms, follow red line evacuation routes immediately.
Dean frowned.
Ma'am, what exactly are we guarding?
She hesitated. That's what scared me. That pause.
The future,
she finally said.
and possibly the end of it.
For the first week, nothing happened. We sat in that bunker, surrounded by scientists who spoke in coded language and carried clipboards like weapons. Our station was outside a set of triple reinforced blast doors. Beyond them was Sector C and whatever the hell Project Chimera was. The air near that corridor always felt heavier, like walking underwater. We never saw anyone go in or out except for a small group of researchers in gray suits. Every time they came out, they looked more hollowed, pale, sweating, eyes twitching like they hadn't slept in days. The only glimpse I got of the subject was on the security feed, a room filled with thick fog and shadows moving behind glass. The cameras always seemed to glitch around it, static dancing whenever the shape shifted. Ruiz joked that it was some alien. Harker swore he heard something scratching behind the walls at night. Sawyer told us all to shut up and keep our posts. But the scratching didn't stop. Sometimes it sounded like metal being dragged across concrete. Other times, softer, wet, like something breathing where there shouldn't be air. Dean ran some air quality checks once. Nothing came up, but his hands shook when he told me.
Cole, there's something alive in the vents. I heard it moving. It's not rats.
By day 8, one of the scientists vanished. No alarms, no mention of it, just gone. The others acted like she never existed. On day 10, they moved us closer. New orders. Guard the inner containment level. That was the first time I felt it. The presence. The hum of machinery in the walls grew deeper, like it was syncing with my heartbeat. When we passed the viewing chamber, the glass fogged from the inside. Dean froze. There was something pressed against it. Tall, thin, too long to be human. For a moment, I saw an eye, black and segmented like an insect's, watching us. Then it pulled back into the mist. The lab chief called it an adaptive biological synthesis organism, a mix of DNA from multiple species, human, animal, maybe more. He said it could mimic shapes, voices. It was learning. Sawyer laughed like he didn't believe it. But that night, we heard ourselves talking from the hallway, voices that weren't ours. It happened on day 14. 03:17 hours. I remember because I couldn't sleep. A low siren started echoing through the halls, not loud, but deep, like it came from the ground itself. The red lights flashed, then everything went dark. We scrambled from our bunks.
Sector C breach.
Someone shouted through the intercom.
All security personnel respond.
We rushed to the corridor. The blast doors were open, torn open, not by explosives, by force. Metal bent outward like paper. Inside, the containment room was empty. The fog was gone, the glass was shattered, and smeared across the floor were drag marks, wet, streaked with something black that steamed in the cold air. Harker started shaking.
What the hell did they make here?
Dean whispered.
Something that wasn't supposed to live.
Then we heard it. The wet click of claws on tile. It came from above. The ceiling panels shifted. Something long and pale slid between them, boneless, fluid. Eyes glimmered in the dark, too many of them, reflecting the emergency lights like mirrors. Sawyer fired first. The flash lit up its shape, a grotesque fusion of muscle and sinew, human-like but wrong, limbs folding backward, its mouth split vertically. Bullets tore through it, but the thing kept moving. It dropped into the hall, slamming Sawyer into the wall with a sound I'll never forget. "Fall back," I shouted. We ran. The thing moved like a spider, like liquid flesh crawling after us. It didn't roar, it didn't scream, it whispered. Our names, perfectly imitated. We sealed ourselves in the elevator shaft. Ruiz tried to get comms working, but every frequency was dead. All channels just hissed. Dean was bleeding from his arm, clawed open. He kept muttering,
"It's in the system. It's everywhere."
When the elevator started moving on its own, I thought it was a malfunction. But then I noticed it was going down, past the lowest level we knew. The doors opened to a floor that wasn't on any map. Rusted metal, no lights, walls covered in black residue. The smell hit us, rot and ozone. We found old labs, long abandoned, glass tanks filled with deformed things floating in amber fluid, half-human faces, stitched torsos, organs that pulsed even without power. That's when Dean saw it, a logbook labeled Chimera, Stage 1, Reclamation. The notes described experiments on human regeneration, neural fusion, and biological memory. Subject exhibits ability to retain residual consciousness from absorbed tissue. Dean's voice broke.
"It's consuming people. That's how it learns."
Ruiz found another door, marked Observation Room 0. Inside, there were bodies, soldiers like us, but they weren't dead. Their chests moved, lungs twitching. Eyes rolled in their sockets, blind and wet. A voice spoke through the intercom, the lab chief.
"You've gone too far,"
he said.
"Containment protocols are active. You cannot leave."
Then the power went out again. Something moved behind the glass. I don't remember how long we ran after that. The corridors became mazes, walls shifting, signs changing, the structure itself breathing. Dean was taken first. One moment he was behind me. The next there was nothing but a wet sound and a shadow pulling him into a vent. Ruiz kept screaming into his radio, begging for extraction. He never noticed the whisper until it was too late, his own voice coming from the dark. It said,
"You're already home."
When I found him again, he wasn't Ruiz anymore. His face was there, but his eyes, they were black glass. And when he spoke, I heard all of us, overlapping voices, echoing inside one throat. I put him down. I had to. By the time I reached the surface access tunnel, the air smelled like chemicals and iron. I climbed for what felt like hours until I hit a locked hatch. Then I heard the scraping below me, slow, deliberate. It was calling my name again, my own voice. When I finally forced the hatch open, the desert night hit me like a dream. The stars looked fake. My radio crackled once, a faint voice saying,
"Containment breach neutralized. All assets terminated."
I looked down into the shaft. It was empty, but I could feel it watching me. I started walking. The horizon didn't move. The desert stretched forever. Now I'm sending this log from my helmet cam feed. If anyone finds it, don't come looking for Project Chimera. Don't even try. Because I think whatever was down there, it's not contained anymore. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still hear it whispering in my own voice. And sometimes, it says things I haven't thought yet.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Eerie Archives channel. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you'd like to see in the next video. Until next time, stay eerie.